I'd like everybody to remember the deep significance of the Father. The concept of the Father is no different than being a teacher. They're very, very similar. A father and a teacher, very similar. Because a teacher plays that role of leader, and the father plays that role as well. Do not get caught up in stereotypes, masculine, feminine, like I'm talking pro-male. Because if you were here on Mother's Day, it would look the opposite. I'm just going to focus a little bit more on that particular archetype. But they're very, very similar, the teacher. And people think, everybody thinks they're a spiritual teacher these days. Like it's just, oh, I'd like to do that. I actually had somebody call me once and say, listen, you're really wonderful, and I know you're successful as a spiritual teacher. How do I do that? Oh, well, you reach in the bottom of a cereal box and you just take it out and it'll say spiritual teacher. Come on. Honestly, in a sense, I understand philosophically we're all teachers. I do understand that in a sense, we are all teachers. Not because we're spiritual educators, but we're spiritual teachers in that the presence that you hold is always teaching something. If I'm confident, that energy is emanating, and it teaches people the reflection of confidence. It could be trust, it could be power, it could be strength, it could be courage, whatever it is. We're always teaching, including insecurity, low self-worth. When we're acting that way, it's telling people that's what we believe about ourselves, and then it also plants a seed for them. You can also be insecure like me. That's the ad that we're running when we put that kind of energy out there. So if a person wants to be a good spiritual teacher, but we're also talking about fathers, it's the same. Almost every line or almost every word, it's the same. How do you become a great father? First of all, you have to understand it's who you are. If you want to be a great spiritual teacher, it has to be who you are. You can't just go, I want to do that because I want to stand up in front of on a stage or whatever. That's not how you do it. It really needs to be who you are, including past lives. If you're going to be a spiritual teacher, it would help if you've done some of this before. A bit here and a bit there. I don't mean literally standing on a pulpit, but some amount of owning your spiritual beliefs. Just owning your beliefs. You could have been a wise woman out in the woods, somewhere, Europe, and that might have been what you were doing as a teacher at that time. In a way, I always say that a teacher is more like an expression of the Divine Father, and a healer is like an expression more often of the Divine Mother. But I don't stereotype genders. The masculine, a male could be both, and a female could be both. But to be a great teacher, it really has to be somewhat who you are. And then you have to develop some skills and be good at it. It helps if you're good at it. It also helps if you have a unique way of presenting those teachings. A unique way. A clear way as well. Unique is one thing, but a clear way. If you're going to teach something spiritual or any other topic, be clear about how you're teaching what you're teaching. Try to make it understandable, but also unique. Unique could be that you work in mythology more than some people do. And unique could be you're charismatic or whatever it is. Just somehow unique. That way people can go, wow, that really makes sense, or I like the way that kind of feels. And then there's one more piece. Sharing what you're sharing in a way that people can relate. That helps. And, Buddha shared to a particular culture, and Lao Tzu shared to a particular culture, Quetzalcoatl, and any teacher you hear about through time, they all shared for their particular culture. Muhammad, everybody. Jesus was the only we know of, the first world teacher. He's said to have arrived at every continent, every culture, South American, Central American, indigenous peoples of North America. They all describe this person looking like Jesus in a seamless white robe, and they usually describe that he still had wounds in his wrists. The marking. So that was sort of an interesting thing that they would remember that. It's not that he showed up and he hadn't healed it yet. It's that it was a symbol, so they would remember that he was somehow unique. And they would ask him sometimes, what is that? And he would say, those are the wounds that were inflicted on me elsewhere. So he was not healing the wounds. Did he not have the bandages on enough? Or no, it's that it was symbolic. He was saying, remember this because someday people will explain who I am. So he's unique, he's different. But how are you unique? Oh, well, let's see. I guess I have to be the richest person, or I have to be... No, you don't have to be anything externally fantastic. You're a mom, you're not a mom. Each of those is unique from one another. You've had only one child or you've had 6 children. That's different and unique. Male or female, black or white. This mixture, that mixture. A heavy interest and background, even your past lives. You come into this life saying like strong affinity, the native traditions and cultures. You're unique. Even if you're living in Norway and you feel totally Native American. There's people in Norway that somehow, some way, they need to hear your expression of that. So bringing that forward is the challenge. Can you do it? Will you do it? And we're allowed to say, no, I'm going to let my low self-worth, insecurities or whatever, get the best of me. Or you can say, you know what? It's who I am. And that's the catch. When it doesn't matter if you're an herbalist or a coach or whatever we do. It's to recognize being a parent, you're not a parent just because you got pregnant or impregnated. Being a true mother or father is actually something you earn. You can be a biological dad and mom. Okay, fine. But I'm talking about really stepping into that. Being a mother is who I am. Even if I've had no children, a woman or a man for that matter could say, being a woman is who I am. I'm a total nurturer. I've known individuals that never had children and took care of lots of people as though they were all that woman's child. Pretty cool. And any of us can do that. We can play that role, the male, the male aspect of God. To be a teacher, just step into it. And it doesn't have to be, well, men seem to be taking up that. Don't even buy into any stereotypes. Well, only white people, or only males, or only this, or only... None of that's true. Just if you understand it's who you are, nothing will stop you from doing that thing. If you still think it's something you're doing and you need to do better and you need to compete with others who are also doing, you're really not going to get there because you're still insecure. And then the insecurity will mirror insecurities in all kinds of forms outside. It's who I am. Guys, you can feel it. There are times that I look in my room and the colors or whatever, the atmosphere, the decor, it just feels like it's totally who I am. I can't imagine I could walk into somebody else's house and it's like it's not me. It doesn't mean it's good nor bad. It's just like it's not my thing. There are just certain things you can just tell. It's just, they say, it becomes you. It's actually not becoming me. It's who I am. Whatever it happens to be. And to do otherwise actually will feel foreign, and it'll actually be more exhausting to do jobs and work that you're not really one with. So a good teacher knows how to carry across certain things. And one of those things is, how can you say you're a spiritual teacher if you're not leading people to spirit? Think about it. How can you say you're a healer? Because the only thing that ever causes anything to need healing would be the ego self. It's not me that needs healed. It's I have allowed my ego self to create sickness or whatever the problem is. So only the ego is really behind it's like saying our lower self is the one that can get sick. All right? Now, if that's true, then the only way to heal is to expose that lower self or those belief systems about poverty or whatever you've got. Any healing art that doesn't heal the soul isn't really healing at all. It might even sound organic. This freshly grown something will help you heal. Well, if it's freshly grown, it must. Listen, only your belief systems can be sick, and if you don't heal the belief systems, I don't care how organic it is. You just made up another story about something that's even more organic, it's more healthy. No, you can only heal when you heal the belief systems. That's the healer. But the teacher, you're never really teaching if you're not teaching spirit. It doesn't make any sense. Don't call yourself a spiritual teacher if the spirit isn't in what you're teaching. You can say, I'm a math teacher. That's fine. Then teach math. And if we expect a math teacher to say, well, welcome to math class. First of all, we're going to start with consonants, vowels. If somebody go, that's really odd. First lesson in math class today is grammar. It doesn't make sense. So when you hear spiritual teachers talking more about just inane stuff, don't bother. Go to the best. Go to teachers that draw you closer to God. Go to healers that draw you further from the ego self and closer to God. In other words, don't settle. And a good teacher not only is teaching about God, which sounds like, okay, I'm going to stand here and talk about God. That's one thing. But they're also able to understand their oneness with the people they're teaching. They're not looking superior, like, okay, you inferior souls, you poor things. Let me just tell you a thing or two. A good spiritual teacher, because it sees spirit, knows oneness. So a good spiritual teacher is going to say, I recognize that you and I are one and the same. And I'm talking about spirit. So another thing, an attribute is going to be, I also understand that we're one with God. So a good spiritual teacher is talking about how to reconnect with God more, but they're never losing sight that, like as though they're better than the students. We're in this together. A good spiritual teacher understands it. A good healer would understand that. But a good spiritual teacher in the mind, not necessarily always verbally, but in the mind, they will always be affirming your equality to them and your equality in God. That's why a good spiritual teacher speaks affirmatively that we are one with God. God is, I am, we are. Affirmative things. A good spiritual teacher is also going to expose things that aren't spirit, that aren't spiritual. Some people get funky about that when I talk about the ego or the games we play with ourselves, the low self-worth and buying into old wounds, and somebody told you weren't worth anything when you were young and you still believe it. I tell you, it's a lie. They were wrong. They were mistaken. And it sounds harsh, but it's the truth. The truth is simply saying, here's the truth, that's not true over there. We're not comparing, when you're in spirit, you're not comparing my truth better than their truth. No, there's the truth, and the truth is you're made in the image of God. When someone treated you like you weren't, they were wrong. And it sounds, for some people. And those of us who are spiritual teachers can speak more positively and affirmatively, confidently, because you know. A teacher who's theorizing is one thing. They're guessing. I think that we all have maybe a little bit of value, I hope, and that's great because I love their vulnerability and they're trying to come out. But what I really love is someone who knows it. To go to a mechanic who goes, I don't know. Surgeon, they looking, not sure. Is that the heart or is that the liver? You want to put your hands in the hands of a good spiritual teacher, they should know. Not arrogantly. Because again, it's all this weird thing that's happening in the mind. That as I'm speaking, I know I'm receiving that. Am I receiving always the highest? I'm speaking? No, I'm receiving the highest for us now. It's never completely different 5 years from now. That is good news. Hey, listen, remember what I taught you 5 years ago? Well, throw that out because something new's coming through. It never felt like that for me. It always feels pretty consistent, pretty congruent. So when we're really plugged in and playing the role of the father, your children need to know that you're being confident when you say, we're okay, guys. Thunder and lightning, boom, outside, the kids are scared. It's okay. Now, if dad says, I think it's okay, man, I'm not sure. This next strike, the house could come down, man. Better all hide, that doesn't feel right. The dad might even be scared a little bit, but he's trying to access the part in him that's not afraid when he says to the kids, it'll be okay, right? He's doing his best, and that's a teacher. Not a saint, not an ascended master yet, but a teacher. A teacher is beautiful because a teacher can and will own mistakes too. Like in other words, there's a vulnerability to a good father. So fathers have to be willing to recognize when, there's something a little bit off. And I'm not talking about doing confessions to your 5-year-olds. It doesn't make sense. And it's not really healthy in so many different ways. But a healthy father, we're not all the way home yet. So it's okay to own those little foibles, to own those little vulnerabilities. It sounds like you're not being a good teacher or a good father when you're doing that, but that's what actually takes you to another level. Because you're not only owning that there is a little something here and there that's scary or whatever, but you're also then showing, and it is my intention to get past that. I'm going through a test. That's a good father. I'm going through a test and I shall make it to the other side. It's not to pretend you never have those tests, those challenges. And there's a student in all of us. Teachers, healers, male, female, we're all still students too. There's a term, an old Indian term, it's called a chela, or a disciple, or apostle, those kinds of terms. So you can be a student, but I would say to you, be a student of God. You can be. Don't just be a student of Michael or of so-and-so. Be a student of God. Connect more and more with God. Be a good student. You want to be a good teacher, a good father, a good mother, then also be a good student. I would say to you, learn from God, from the Divine Mother, from Christ. Like, set your standards high on who's going to be teaching you. If I were you, that's what I would do. That's what I choose. And yet I would also say, be a student of life. Watch and listen. Like the Shaolin monks, watching animal behaviors and learning things from that. Nature, mimicking animals and how they make sounds and songs. And then replicating that. Be a student of nature. A lot of people don't know this, but even your animals have played the role of father for you. In shamanic tradition, you might have an animal that gets sick. It might even die. But a lot of folks don't understand. Sometimes your animals have died because they took a hit for you. Animals sometimes will absorb an energy that was coming into your life. They'll take it on, get sick, or die. That's not a bad thing. Like, oh, they died. Did I hurt them? No. It's what it's there for. The animal, among other things, is saying, I'm here to be the father or the mother for you. And the father's going to be protective. That's what I would do. If something were coming to affect a child of mine or whatever, wouldn't I step up to my last breath? Yes. And the animal does that. But people have lost touch with nature and how to connect with these things to see that something like that happened. Now, even if you get it and you go, whoa, I'm really sad. Or you can go, whoa, shoo, that was a close one. Sorry, Charlie, to the dog or whatever. That's not how you do it. Even if it already happened, you should pause and say, okay, the animal's life shall not be in vain. It took a hit for me. Let me get what it was dying for. Was it telling me there's a negative energy in your partnership or in your someone who's trying to date you or whatever, and it took on that negative vibe? It didn't take it on so it's gone now. It takes it on and sometimes it's trying to still teach you. Please there's a reason I died. Get the message so that I didn't die in vain. And in that sense, you could say it's being like the Christ. But also I'm saying it's a reflection of the Father. Your animals protected you. It could be a couple of birds. You go, well, why did a couple of birds die recently in my yard or whatever? These are all symbolic things. There is no outside. The Father is trying to teach us everything's connected. So when something passes away, all these things are connected. And then, of course, we're supposed to ask, without overanalyzing, what is the message of this? What is this for? That's one of the meanings, Jesus says in A Course in Miracles. One of the meanings, translations, when I said you must be as children, he says, is that I meant you must learn to ask questions like children. What is this? Why? Instead of, oh, my dog died. Or I'm really miserable because my dog died. That's fine. What did it mean, though? I don't know. I'm just sad. See, that's just being a miserable human being. You're just sad. And the animal's like going, you've got to be kidding me. I died for you? I should have ran to the next door neighbor and lived with them. I'm trying to tell you, you got some toxic stuff going on. You've got stress. Too much stress. When I come and snuggled with you, I was absorbing the stress so you, my master, my parent or whatever, wouldn't have to suffer. And you still are doing it? I'm never coming back with you, So it's very important to recognize what all these things mean. Be a good father. Be a good teacher. Recognize you have a role and people are relying on you to bring a message. If you want to be an actual spiritual teacher, then you step up even further. This is who I am. I can feel it. I love teaching. I love this or that. When I first went and did a class, I was taking some classes like to row and those kinds of things. I was taking some classes, and one time the teacher was sick, and they said, "So Michael, they're looking around the room. Well, the teacher's sick. Does anybody have anything they might? I'm just a kid. Does anybody have anything they can do to kind of? We're all here." And one of them said, "Michael, don't you do healing stuff like acupressure and all that?" Yeah. They said, "Well, why don't you teach us acupressure or whatever it was today?" Okay. Now, what was beautiful was they said, "Why don't you?" If it would have been up to me, I still might have allowed the shy side to not do that. So when you ask people, "Hey, why don't you?" Maybe you could. You're actually inviting them to access their divine father and mother self. See? So one of you said, yesterday, you shared, "Oh, Michael, one of the guys, I had a dream about you, and you were just holding me." I thought, that's beautiful. That's totally Father's Day. That's totally the father or the mother, depending on how you want to look at it. But in the auspicious time of Father's Day, for a guy to say, shamelessly, beautifully, I had this dream and you were just holding me, I think it's fantastic. I would like to think that all people could believe and trust in each other enough to say, "If I'm suffering, could you hold me? Would you mind if hold means, let me share something and entrust it to you verbally." Or it could be my heart, my pain, my tears. Being the father and mother, man, everybody gets all cosmic. I'm going to be part of the Father and the universe and the mother and the earth mother. Be nice. Just try starting somewhere else. Just, can you manifest that ultimate feeling of a good, healthy mother and father? Because we're not asked to honor, as I said before we started today, we're not asked to honor gratuitously fathers and mothers. We're asked to honor the honorable parts. So are you ever being the honorable aspect of the mother, the father? Are you still afraid to take someone's hand for fear of their reaction? To take someone's hand and just say, "Are you okay?" To hold somebody. It's the most beautiful thing. I've taught this in workshops. People come to me for all around the planet to learn workshops of healing. And once in a while, they're like, "Okay, what technique is he going to show? Hands on, energy, ascended master, whatever." They're expecting all these cool cosmic things. And one of the most effective, deep, powerful healing techniques, I'll say, "Okay, who would like?" People raise their hand. "Oh, come up here." They're expecting, "Okay, he's going to levitate me," and and they're expecting all the cool cosmic things. And I'll say, "Okay, come here," and I sit down, get my back against a wall so it's supported, sit them in my lap, and just hold them. And usually when I hold, this starts happening very naturally, just rocking, and the person's probably at first like, "This is weird. I've never heard of this healing technique." It's a hug, it's a hold, it's a space, it's a safety, and all that. And what's amazing though is after they get out of their mind wondering and thinking, and you just start sort of dropping into this thing, just this wave. And then you're thinking again, and then this just takes you. Calgon, take me away. And then you start unwinding and decompressing. Thoughts start dropping and decompressing. And I know people can think things. I sat in a minister's office once, and I was working with a really large guy. And that's what he needed. I could tell. So I sat on the floor, sat him on my lap, and just held him. And, and what was strange was the minister walked in. I'll talk to you later, and I know that thoughts, I remember a body worker once walked in, and he had his room, his therapy room, healing room, and I was using it for sessions. And he walked in, I had this gal on my lap rocking, and he felt so nervous, so scared, because to him, contact was just strange and foreign. And even as the facilitator, when I see the reaction, there's a little bit of me that goes, uh-oh. And that's us mirroring that temptation to doubt our goodness. And you have to answer that. I hope you can answer it, God is good.
Yes.
And if you had any other intentions or stuff behind it, just clear it. Oops. If something else was there. When you're there with that person so perfectly, so lovingly and unconditionally, everything else just passes away. And I can still tell the stories of those moments because of all the layers of things that happened. But right then, I'm needing to have and go through a test. Am I really going to be the father or mother and hold this person? Shamelessly, unconditionally. Nothing else matters right now. Nothing else matters. They're unwinding and I'm unwinding, and it's just bliss. You're just dropping into this beautiful state of healing. The person can have thoughts of, and I've said to them, imagine what it would be like to be a soul being held in the heart of God. And they can feel almost no incongruence to this thing that I'm doing. Right? Even though it's right here on earth and with bodies, they can actually feel consistent with what it's like to be a soul held in God. Then I can shift it after a while and say, imagine what it's like to be held by a safe daddy. And then that processes things. If they've never had that, they might cry. If they have had that, all you're doing is asking a question and letting them go through all the processes and answers. Just be as unconditional as possible. And then I might ask him, and what it's like to be held by a safe male. And then here come the tears. I've never been held by a safe male. And the awe of, yes, I was held by one. He passed away. Whatever it is that their stuff, their process, their layers. All you're doing is holding space, but you're doing it viscerally. Not just in here like hold space. You're actually holding space. And most people have not been held in that level of perfection. We all deserve it. If a child ever asked you, would you please? Would you say, oh no, better ask your own mom. It's inappropriate. Not allowed. It's weird. How would you answer to a child? And if you have any heart at all, you would say, well, God, if a child came to you and they're scared, and you would absolutely pick them up and hold them in safety. And if they're crying, they lost their mom in the crowd at Disneyland, wherever, you don't go, well, let's talk about that. You want to hold them. You want to just comfort. It's okay. But my mom said, I know, honey, we're going to find it. It's okay. You reassure. That's the right thing to do. But if you understand that, why wouldn't you do that for yourself? Why wouldn't you give that to others, and why wouldn't you allow? Is it only for children? No. Why not all the time, whenever I can? Hold space for people. Be the presence of people. If you have a little money, help with people financially. If you have warm hugs, give a hug. If you have wisdom, give wisdom. Be a good teacher. Be a good healer. Be a good mom. Be a good dad. Just being God's presence. It's a gift given to us. And the worst thing is, if you don't live it, you're going to lose it. The gifts you don't use, you will lose. The gifts you abuse, you will lose. All that past life karmic stuff, it all has an intelligence to it. So when you have a gift of, I'm really good at holding space for people or holding people, it's called a gift, and Buddha himself says, anything you have achieved, it's a gift and you should use it to bring people closer to God. So do it. If you don't know how to keep self out of the way, process. It's okay, process. Talk to safe others, a counselor, and say, I was doing some healing and it was very, very powerful, but I noticed I might have slipped here with a word or a thought. Bring it out. Bring it to the light. Talk about it when you have those doubts. You're a counselor and or a healer, and you might have a doubt that you're good at it. Bring it to your healers and counselors and say, I had doubts, man. What do I do? Process it so that it's not a hidden thing under yet another rock, a stone in the mind. Bring everything to the light. If it's brought to the light, what will it become but lit? Light will shine on it and things will start disappearing. Yes. So yes, honor the Father, absolutely, but not gratuitously, and it doesn't mean you're just your dad. Honor honorable aspects of the Father. Be a good father. And as I'm starting to close, it's anytime you have been safe for others, been strength for others, given life and inspirations to others, then you're the father. Anytime you nurtured or held, and a lot of times that's the mother. And I don't even really, personally, I don't even register. I don't care. I don't think, wait, mother's now becoming father. I don't think it. It's just the presence. It becomes so natural. You might think about it at first, but then it becomes very natural. Just becomes very organic to do the right thing in the right moment. What's the next right thing? And the mother and the father just come shining through. I know a couple of quick stories. My own kids are kind of odd. They're kind of eccentric in a lot of ways. I don't know where they got that, but two stories. One I've shared before, and I think one I haven't. But here are two stories. So one of them I just thought was brilliant because they were just sharp, man. They were just sharp all the time, and they could think so quickly. It was just amazing. Well, one time I was in Target with them. And I would always be with my kids, walking them around. And it was pretty cool, it was always connecting with them pretty well. And we're walking through the, store and don't know what they were looking for something, or we're looking for their mom or whatever it was. But I'm walking with them. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, and they're like, what? And I go, come here, guys, come here. And they caught on immediately. No, Dad. No, because I saw something. No, come here, guys. No, Dad. Get away from there. Come on, go this way. And they're pulling me. And I'm like laughing like, guys, don't make a scene. I'm trying to, no, you're not going that way. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Dad, that's the women's accessories area. I don't care. There's a cosmetic bag. I need one for my travel, suitcase. And they're like pulling me and I'm like making a scene. I'm half laughing and half nervous. Like, would you guys lighten up? I've been looking for it. And they're pulling, and finally I go, listen to me. I've been putting it out there. I've been praying to find one of these cosmetic cases that would fit in my suitcase. And one of them goes, and we've been praying for a father that didn't use women's accessories. Yeah, right? So pretty quick, these guys. And one last one, and I share it because of the fun. But one other time, I pull up in the front, where I often did, at the post office. Guys, wait here. I'm going to go in. No, we want to get the mail. No, wait here. I'm going to go get the mail. No, we're going to go. It's like, guys, shh, just relax. I got to go. No, they're getting out of the van. I'm like, stay, and they're getting out, and they're heading for the door. I'm like, guys. So I get out and I, rush and meet them at the door. Guys, back in the car. And I'm like, they're like, no, we're going to get it. So I'm holding them. I'm trying to, and one of them yells, he's not our father. Help. Help! He's not our father. I'm like, go ahead. I swear. And I'm like, you, what the heck are you thinking? This is really when that saying was coming out, yell, he's not my father. I'm like, oh man, they're too smart for their own good. But, could have got me in trouble. So, probably at that time, 4, 6, and 8. Yeah.
Did they look like you?
The youngest one throughout her childhood looked a lot like me when I was little, but the middle one always had more of my features. But they were all just different, very different. They were all cuspal, so they had extra accessories of astrological cusps. Oh. So they always had more going on than just like a sign. A Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, and a Scorpio, Sag.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so they were all, I remember an astrologer, I had a chart done when they were little. He's like, oh man. He's like, they're going to be tough. He said they're masters, but, they're all really strong souls in different ways. But, and the youngest one, the Virgo, she was a trip because you could just see an angelic presence to her, these amazing blue eyes and this light-like energy, but also had a hard time connecting with the earth plane. You'd be like, okay, it's time to go to school, and she'd be just, somewhere else. So it's like, okay, put on the moon boots or something, and Virgo, Libra going on, and she was just a trip. But they were all very different. And part of the point to that is just I loved being a dad, but I also recognize how I often, in some ways, was the mother, too. You need not distinguish male, female, mom, dad, just being the presence of God. I'm not saying I was the mom, too, because their mom was not a good person. I'm saying that's just what I was doing. So recognize, and I would get on the floor and play dolls with them. I never thought twice about it, whatever they want to do. I'd get home and I could be laying there watching TV with them, and all of a sudden I would do something like make a little growl or some sound. They'd go, and they all knew what's coming, and I'd start, and I would become a Jurassic Park kind of dinosaur, and I'd jump up and just, and start running through and they would just scream, running and slamming the bathroom door, I mean, it was just hilarious. Just a cue. And on cue, they would know, they'd start backing up, and then it would start. Playful, just playful. Connect with people and be playful. There's nothing wrong with the dads playing dolls with the kids. I mean, it makes no difference at all. One of the weirdest times I did that, my daughter, I'm going, okay, we're playing dolls, and she starts this little skit. And so I'm just observing. And she's got her little Barbie, and Barbie and Ken are playing up here on this tall house or building, whatever it was, a cliff. She was supposed to be up on a mountain. And they're talking. And Ken and Barbie suddenly weren't getting along. And so all of a sudden, Barbie slips and she's hanging by her hands. Ken, help me. Not unless whatever the argument was. And whatever it was, but help, I'm slipping. He goes, fine, then under one condition, but I can't. Oh! I mean, it was the strangest thing. She would have these stories all made up in her mind, and she would try to. One time she did a skit as a Native American. I said, "You sound like Gandhi. Your accent is kind of off, hon." But getting in, doing plays, playing roles, being a dinosaur, Barbies and Kens, or whatever else it is, and going for walks and hikes. And I've told stories about that. But how can you be the mom and the dad? If someone, here in town seems disheveled and whatever, and you think they're not dressed nicely enough for your time, ask yourself how you can be the father or the mother in that moment, because they wouldn't look at that. They wouldn't discern on that level. How can you just be the presence, even if what they're doing seems off in some way? How can I be helpful within what's right for you? You have to discern in your own boundaries. I'm not telling you to go overboard, but how can you be helpful today? And I've shared once before, I remember at one time we had a very, very, an older gentleman here who was also sick. And he was getting towards the end of his life, I think, at one point. But he had a bathroom crisis, and made quite a mess. And I remember one of the people in this room got up and went over and went in the bathroom and cleaned him up and took care of him. I mean, that's an unbelievable thing to do. And if it were me, is that like, I can't wait, that's exciting? No, but it's what needs done. It's what needs done. And the same love you would have changing your own child's diaper. You're not supposed to be thinking about, this is not good, this is beyond me, I'm above that. Not at all. How can I be helpful? You love that. It's like a little ritual. Change the diaper. Who cares? It's beautiful. Can we do that for other people? Now, that one person did do that went and helped them. I wasn't aware of it at the time, but would I have? Yeah, I would have. I don't know if I'd have been as perfect at it as this other person. I don't know if I'd have been as shameless. I don't know. All I know is I would have done my best. How can you be the best you can be to people? And you're always going to then be an expression of the mother or the father or both. Father's Day. If you didn't have great fathers, have one now. We're going to have a ritual in a few minutes where males are going to play a role up here and they're going to recite a brief blessing to you along the lines of, I'm symbolizing the Divine Father today, and I'm blessing you with an awakening, a quickening of the Christ self. So soak that in. Allow that to really, really soak in. Because even your human parents didn't necessarily birth you spiritually. Human parents might have birthed you physically, biologically, and so on. They usually aren't the ones that birth you spiritually. And of the two, which is most important? The spiritual birth. My parents didn't do enough. Well, yeah, but that's usually the case. They maybe let you down in terms of human birth, human behaviors. But that's human. That which is flesh is flesh. What matters is spirit. So to stay unborn doesn't make any sense. Find some symbol of healthy male and female. I appreciate when people can see that in me. It's really quite an honor. As a male, and throughout my years, there's times when people might have thought they saw a male or they competed with a male or they had issues along those lines. But it feels more and more wonderful when more and more people can see beyond male or female and just see goodness, because that's what my intentions are. You know, but not everybody, you know, handles that. But I've been, you know, I've lived that. As a male, I've lived with people kind of the male competitive thing, and it always astounded me because it wasn't necessarily in my conscious mind, but I saw this thing, guys kind of, you know, kind of doing this male thing with me. And I think, this is so funny. Just pee on the pole and mark your territory. Dude, leave me alone. Like, you know, I'm not like in competition with you. It's all right. Mark your territory. I don't care. And that goes all the way back to high school even. But the calling is, when you see something recurring like that in your life, challenges, whether it's romantic or health or whatever, when you see something, you can bet that it's, because it's a pattern, it's a very important lesson for you. So I had to go, and I did go through that, but all that did at the end is, because I let it become positive, I used it to hone my skills as a person that is a better father and mother. The child male saw that, not sure what to do with it, but the spiritually evolving self said, oh, I get it. Let them have their thing, and it doesn't need to affect who we are. So be all you can be, as they say in the ads. Thank you.